Okay, welcome back to New Little Life. I am beyond thrilled to talk tonight with Elicia. She is one of actually our oldest members in the program. She's been with us since the beginning, and I think we've even been with her since the beginning too. So she
Mhm.
has an amazing story to share, and I can't wait to get in and let you hear it. So I'm just actually going to start off by turning the time over to her. Alicia, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a little introduction of yourself and your beautiful little family, and then we'll kind of just start your story at the beginning.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Elicia, and I'm in my twin mom era right now. Um, yeah, my little Luke and my little Leah are 20 months, and I wasn't ever really expecting to have twins. So when we got the news, I kind of went into this like I have to be as prepared as I can mode. So I started reaching out to my girlfriends that had been through, pregnancy, delivery, all of that. And one thing that really stood out to me was one of my girlfriends told me if I could go back and talk to my past self, the advice I would give is no one told me how hard it was going to be to breastfeed or pump or anything like that. And I went into it totally unprepared. So I started getting out there and trying to like figure it out. And then I stumbled upon Allison's YouTube and the coursework, and I started following the Instagram, and then I signed in, and it turned out to be this gigantic blessing because I was prepared in a way that most wouldn't. And it was super critical for me in the aspect of being a twin mom. My babies had to go straight to the NICU, and so we got the initial skin to skin, but then it wasn't like we got to go back to the labor and delivery room. And after leaving the OR, and snuggle, they went to the NICU because that's what they needed at the time. And um, being able to start pumping during that separation kind of lit a fire within me that even though I wasn't right there with my babies, there was something that only I could do for them, and it was huge for me. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my story.
Yeah, it was crazy. So I think you started the program while you were still pregnant, if I remember right, and kind of did some
Yes,
like pre-preparation. Were you glad that you
yes.
did that?
Oh my gosh, it was critical. And I was like super excited to meet with the lactation consultant in the hospital because I was prepared that that would be something that they really want to offer twin moms because of the separation and because of it's very common that we need to start pumping in that capacity. What I wasn't prepared for was how little other lactation consultants know about pumping. Um, which is funny because, once I did get that initial consult, I was like, oh, wait, I've already got that. Plus, from my coursework, and it boosted my confidence. Um, and it also was a huge comfort because I knew, I delivered, and from taking the course, yeah, I realized that my hormones were ready to tell my body to start doing what it needed to do. As soon as you deliver the placenta, that I can't remember the name of the hormone, but I knew that that's what triggered it, and it was time to go. And I think it was like nearly midnight by the time they took me back from the OR to the labor and delivery room. And the nurses thought I was hilarious because I was like, I want my pump and I want it right now. And they were like, oh, you can wait till the morning. I was like, no, 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 it's time. And they were like, okay, we'll go get it. And they actually sent in the NICU doctor to talk to me. She was like, will you please just try and sleep? And I was like, okay. And then the deal was they actually brought the pump in, and then I would try and sleep. So like it was there, but they wanted me to sleep. And then she like reassured me and like it's okay to wait till morning. And but it I don't know, it was very empowering to know that there was something I could do in a situation where I might have otherwise felt really helpless.
It's interesting.
So
We get people join us at all different times, most often on maternity leave or like right back to work when things
mhm,
kind of start going downhill. But I love the ones that we find in pregnancy, and I think it all depends on mindset. I remember talking to you while you were still pregnant, and for a lot of people, they're still kind of focused on getting the baby out, which I'm sure was a concern for you too, because like you have two humans in you that need to exit in
yes.
whatever way they are doing that. But I remember you being really like proactive and like feeding is my thing. And like I know they're probably I'm probably gonna have to pump from the beginning because these are twins. And so I remember being really impressed that your mind was already there and preparing. And I remember you told me that the nurses were impressed with you in the hospital because you already knew so much about pumping. And that was a huge win for both me as like I was a little proud too, but I was so happy for you that you just were like, I got this. I'm gonna set myself up from the beginning, and then you just went. So what was it like in the first month or two feeding those babies?
Um, I was really, really grateful that where I delivered, they also offered donor milk. So while my supply was coming in, my babies were on donor milk. But from my experience or my story, part of my story is I had gestational diabetes. So we had actually talked, I think, because the weekly Zooms had launched before I even went in to deliver, and we had talked about like everything from like colostrum, and then I didn't want to do anything like that because I didn't want to trigger an early labor. Um, but also my gestational diabetes and like how my milk specifically could help offset if like hypoglycemia presented in either one of my twins, and it did with Luke. Um, so that was like another thing that I knew that only I could specifically do for him. So as soon as I started having a little bit of supply, they started offering it to Luke, and his hypoglycemia turned around like right away. And that I can't even describe what an amazing, awesome, empowering, just relief that was to be able to help my baby
Yeah. And only you can do,
in that way.
donor milk's great,
Yes.
and that's so awesome your hospital did that too, but it's also nice when you get to kind of do it yourself. So I totally know
Yeah.
what you're saying. So did you end up pumping a lot, like almost exclusively from the beginning, or were you trying to latch them on as well, or what was kind of your goals and plans there?
So I didn't really plan on pumping as much as I ended up pumping, which pretty much became an exclusive pumper. I really wanted to have the experience of breastfeeding, so like I tried to latch a few times, and I had a couple of experiences with each babe, but when we started seeing their pediatrician, they had noticed that they had like a little bit of a tongue tie, and just with everything and how our childcare worked, and the help that we had, it was just easier to have the supply to go into bottles and kind of keep them in their own rhythm. So I ended up pretty much like I had a few breastfeeding experiences directly, and that was sweet. And I'm glad that I got to have that experience, but it was rather limited. And then I just kind of went into exclusive pumping, and um, it worked really well for us. So we went with it.
That happens more often than you think. And how did you feel about it? Were you kind of okay with it, or did you have to kind of work through it? I don't know. Everyone's a little different on when that kind of happens where you have to rely on the pump.
Yeah, I think again, just from like doing the coursework and having those early Zooms, and just the ability to be in a community, in a space where you can discuss it and be like, oh, it might feel like this, it might feel like that. Um, I had kind of thought about it, and then when I just kind of zoomed out a little bit and was like, hey, this is working really well for us. My babies are fed, my babies are healthy. Okay, let's just go with this direction because it's what's working well. So it was just a positive experience because the preliminary conversations and the preparation and being in a community that was supportive, even if it was just on Zoom, um,
Yeah.
it was great.
That's awesome. And I remember you being really easygoing and like good about it too. And I remember having a conversation with you where like, this is working for you and your childcare and your husband, like everyone. And so let's just do it.
Yeah,
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 that's
which
amazing.
is nice. Like I'd be pumping, and my husband would need the bottles, and we would tag team it, and it just it worked well for us. And we were like, you know what? Don't mess with a good thing. Like, and we've got a good thing here.
I think one of the biggest questions that we get with twin moms is I have double the babies and I need double the milk. So did you have enough milk for both babies from the beginning and throughout? Like, I'd love to know how you kind of tackled that double milk supply that you needed.
Yeah. In the beginning, it was a bit of a struggle for my supply to establish. We were, it's kind of the silver lining of being in the NICU. So since Luke and Leia were both in the NICU, they had access to donor milk. So whatever I couldn't supply, that need was being met. But because I had been so diligent about pumping while I was in the hospital, we had talked about it, and you had helped me set up, like every every few hours. And for the life of me, I can't remember
It was
what
a
my
long
schedule
time
was,
ago.
but yes, I knew what it was. We had previous discussions about it. I had it written down, and like I knew what my program was, and um, even like the providers at the NICU were super impressed, and we were kind of pushing for our babies to come home. And one of the things that they always did to support us for, an early discharge out of the NICU was like, well, mom is already pumping a full supply for babies. Like if they go home, mom already has a full supply. And I don't think that I would have been able to do that if I hadn't been as encouraged and as empowered and aware of what I needed to do to get us where we needed to go.
So by the time you went
Um,
babies home, you were making enough for both babies?
yes, it was.
That is
Um,
amazing. And it was not, how long were they in the NICU for? I can't remember.
they about 2 weeks.
That is like
So
so 2 weeks and you've got enough. That's like 60 ounces a day. It's amazing. I was
yeah,
so proud of you.
we would do the Dr. Brown's formula pitchers because it would take the milk fat and stir, and it was just insane because we just always had one of those in the fridge. And whenever you're like, oh my gosh, am I doing anything? I mean, you could just open the fridge and be like, oh yeah, you are. Like, keep going.
You're good. Yeah. And so how was the rest of your maternity leave? Did you have 3 months till you had to go back to work?
Yes, I had 3 months. Yeah, it was just a really it was a huge learning experience, as being a first time mom. You know, just the recovery because I delivered both ways. So my baby A was a natural delivery and my baby B was an emergency C-section. So there was a lot of recovery. I remember kind of like, I guess you could say I felt like I was like bursting at the seams because sometimes, and oh man, compression. I have a chiropractor that we were seeing at the time, and they were like, if you can find like some kind of yoga pants or anything that are comfortable but make you feel compressed, like that was huge. Um, and then just having the time at home to set up my little pumping cart and make it comfortable and have all the snacks and figure out the equipment and what worked
Yeah.
best was really nice to do during maternity leave. And then figuring out learning how to be a mom.
Yeah, it's a lot all at once, and so much of
Yeah.
your life revolves around milk, but there's a lot of other
Mm.
things you got to do too. So, when you went back to work, were you feeling ready to do that? Were you a little apprehensive? Did you have a little freezer stash? Tell us what that transition was like.
Um, yeah, I did have a bit of a freezer stash. Which was really, really nice to have that little bit of comfort, knowing that I could go to work and the babies were gonna get fed. I don't know if we figured it out until like month 3 or 4, but neither baby would take formula. So that sometimes it felt like a lot of pressure because it was all on me, and like we'd be like, okay, well maybe they won't take it this time, but every time we tried to introduce it or anything inconsistently, they just wouldn't take it. um so I had a lot of nerves about that. My first day back, I actually ended up getting sick right before I went into work, like just like this wave of nausea, and I think it was just all like nerves and stuff, but I was trying to tell myself I wasn't worked up about it. But yeah, going back, and then just being in a male dominated field, I worked in the construction industry. So I think I was like maybe one of 4 or 5 women that worked in our office. So, um, but having all that preparation, like even while I was pregnant, like I knew that I was going to have access to a mini fridge because we put one in my office. I had curtains that I was totally comfortable with how opaque they were. Um, and the guys totally respected the privacy. Like I didn't even have anybody really knock on my door anytime the curtains were drawn. So that the I guess I was more surprised of how respectful my colleagues were at that time. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was going back to work.
It was, I remember that too. I remember you tried formula a few times and it did not go well. And It's a lot of
Oh,
pressure to put on you. And not only did you have one baby, you had two babies. So we had to keep up this
yeah.
really large supply to continue to feed two babies because they wouldn't take formula. And yeah, that's a lot of pressure on yourself, as well as all now your work pressures are back too. Now you have to do your job, you have
Hmm.
to do all these things and fit pumping in it. What were the hardest timelines in your back to work pumping?
I
4,
think
5,
that I
7,
had
8 months. What was the hardest?
um I think maybe like I want to say in between like month 4 and month 6, like I had a dip in supply, and that's when we like got out the Excel spreadsheets and you really just kind of walked me through. And um, the dip in supply, I think because every ounce counted because of the twin situation so much that it was really, really stressful. And I think that stress impacted a lot. But like once I knew what I could do, um, and then the power pumping helped quite a bit. And then just being like, telling myself, if you have to do this at work, there is time for it, there is space for it. Like, just do it, stay focused. And my supply came back up, the stress of it went away. And then after that initial hurdle, like if there was ever any dip, like I knew what I needed to produce, so to speak, and how to get there. And I wasn't afraid of it anymore. Um, and then just anytime I needed to switch to a few more power pumping sessions, like I did, and we got there.
I remember that being really effective for you. It's always so interesting because everyone kind of has different things that work better for
Hmm.
them. And like power pumping isn't effective for everyone. It's also not feasible for everyone. But
Hmm.
for you in the time it was, and it was effective. So then that's just kind of what we did. 4 to 6 months is often the hardest part for a lot of moms because you're back to work. Like you have this stuff and your babies are not eating solid foods yet. So they're still all on breast milk and they're getting big. And it's a lot all piled on top of each other. Yeah.
It's like the biggest gap to close, but we did it. And we got there. And
So, what was your goal? Did you hit it? What was that
yes,
like?
my goal was 12 months, and I actually pumped until 14 months.
Wow.
Just, yeah, it did. Really, really happy about it. It was a little spotty towards the end, like a checkup. One of the physician's assistants actually told me that I needed to supplement more with formula because the babies were a little bit on the smaller side. And I was feeling really discouraged about that. But then I actually did like my yearly follow up with my midwife who delivered the babies, who was also a nurse practitioner. And I was telling her about it, and she was like, "You know what? Don't worry about what they say. If they're not taking the formula and you're not feeling comfortable with it, from everything that you're telling me, like they're getting 25 ounces a day each, and you're feeling good about it. And some babies are just small, and like just having her encourage me." And she even shared a story about how one of her children were on the smaller size, like mine, and she was like, you do what's best for you. And like, I immediately went home and took all the stress out about the formula, and we just did what was right for us. And I couldn't be happier for it. And I mean, both babies were thriving at the time. They're still thriving. And it was a huge lesson learned that, kind of you've got to trust your own intuition, and feel free to get a second opinion from a provider that you trust.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm really careful not to say anything contradictory to what a provider
Mhm.
says because they
Mhm.
outrank me in what we do, right? But it's also really important for me that you feel like you're making choices you're comfortable with. And what I can do is encourage a second opinion if I'm unsure of what they said, and so I'm so glad that you got there on your own and were able to like feel comfortable with, because like you're right, like they're getting enough, and if you and the mom are comfortable and they're fine, and sometimes it's just that mother's
Yeah.
intuition that we need.
Yeah, we're here day to day. We're seeing them. We're watching the development. I'm sorry if you don't like that your little chart graph doesn't hit exactly what you want it to. But I mean, it wasn't like a huge drastic. They were like the tiniest babies ever. It was like, oh well, we could tweak it, and
Right.
the tweak didn't
Yeah.
really work for us. So
Yeah, for sure. Breast milk. babies are a little different than formula babies too. Like there's a little discrepancy in weight and the growth is different, so it's a little bit of wiggle room there anyway. I would love to know, did you have any like aha moments or things that you just like found that just clicked and made a big difference for you? Anything that you learned in the program that you were like, oh my gosh, that is like a gold nugget? Anything like that that you remember?
Ooh. Um, I think the biggest thing was that I learned through experiences, not every lactation consultant is a pumping expert.
Mm,
Um, and there's a huge gap in that education. Like, I mean, insurance companies make it really easy to get a pump, but the fact that not every lactation consultant is a pumping expert, they give you this equipment and they're like, okay, use it. And I mean, it's not the most comfortable thing to do. Um, and just being in the community and having people that can relate to that, or being like, well, this is not working, and then just uh, just having the little tiny tweaks of that was a huge aha. um, and I think another one would be, I had a few issues with clogged ducts, but when that happened, instead of like panicking, because I mean, at that point, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not, every ounce counts. And
um,
for every couple hours that this clog continues to happen, like I can kind of almost see that picture going down to a level that it wasn't good. Um, but from taking the courses and things, like I knew all the different things I could try. And then eventually, what really worked for me was the salt water in a haka.
mm.
And then I had the Unimom Opera was my primary pump, and then just being able to have like one side turned on and just working through that for as long as I needed was super big. The AHA is also just really um, treat yourself to a couple good pumping bras. Like that was a complete game changer for me. And it was
It,
even just you saying it. Like I think I was at that really difficult point of 4 to 6 months, and I did have one. But then like when you asked me, I was like, well, do I really have one that I'm like, this is comfortable, I can get around in it? Um, and then when you had brought it up, I had started thinking about it, and then I did my research, and the Devin and Adley Amelia, like I got myself three of those, and it was like a complete game changer. Just being able to go to work and have easier access to what you need to do, and
they're cute
yeah,
too, which is like not
oh yeah,
nothing. That like you
I
just
know.
feel like put together, not like these frumpy Amazon, because I use the frumpy Amazon ones too, but like putting on a
Mhm.
pretty bra with some lace that you can stick your pump in is just kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
and it made all the I mean, like you feel a little bit better. And then just the functionality of it was huge. And I mean, this is something that you're doing all the time. It's not just like, oh, well, yeah, I'm using it daily. I'm like, I'm using it every couple hours. Um,
yeah.
so that was really big. If there's any twin mamas listening, I did try both the twin Z pillow and what's the other one? Um, gosh, for the life of me, I can't remember it. But the twin Z works really, really well if you like need to prep and feed the babies. And like my kids actually still use it to hang out, watch a little Disney movie or something. And then the other one is better for if you want to breastfeed, because it just gives you kind of like a little platform on your belly. And then I had another twin mama point me in the direction towards the table for two,
Oh,
and that was huge. They actually now make an insert that you can put in the table for two for either one or both babies if you need it for reflux, which is something that we went through. And I wish I would have known that that even existed. So those were a couple really big niche ahas.
yeah, you have to send me the links for those and I'll put them down in the
Yes,
description because
absolutely.
I feel like twin, I've gotten this question before too, like, do you help moms with twins? Like, I know it's different, but in a lot of ways it's very similar. And, some of these things that
Mhm.
you just mentioned are very like twin specific. And that's the kind of stuff you need other twin moms. And you're actually not the only twin mom in our
Yeah.
program. We've got a couple of others actually too. You were the first though, so that was really fun. But the pumping aspects are really similar. You just have like twice the need. So it's even more
Yeah.
vital that we're doing it correctly and efficiently because you need 50, 60 ounces a day, and got to
Yes.
keep that up too, because there's two of them. And
Uh,
I don't know, did you ever have like on some of those low supply days, did you ever have to choose like which baby got breast milk, which baby got formula?
uh,
I mean, they didn't really take formula well, but
they didn't take formula well, but fortunately, because my supply came in because I was prepared, um, we had enough of a freezer stash that pretty much anytime there was a major gap, the freezer stash could fill it in, which was huge. Um, when we trialed the formula, which is pretty much the mostly what we ever did, it would just kind of be we'd trial it with the babies because wasted formula doesn't make you cringe the way that wasted breast milk makes you cringe. So we would just like, okay, well, let's see if either one would take it. And there were times where like Leia might sip on one more and Luke might slip on more because they kind of like fluctuated. But um, yeah, fortunately, because of freezer stash, like that was huge having that.
yeah. You just did such a good job. Like I just can't say enough how impressed I am with you and your efforts. And I saw the hard stuff and I saw like how you worked through it and it was not easy at times. And the fact that you went over your goal, 14 months pumping for twins like that, you should get a gold star. If I had one to give it, I would give it to you. Because that's incredible. And, you know, looking back, you can like talk about it and like smile and laugh and stuff, but that is not easy. And I'm so proud of you. I also
So
knew we
worth
were going
it
to be
though.
really good friends though, too, when you told me the names of your babies. I'm like, okay, we're we're in the right place together.
Yes, yes, we're still having so much fun with that.
Well, as we kind of wrap up, is there anything else you want to share about your story or any advice you want to give to any mom who's specifically planning on pumping be a large part of their feeding journey? You know,
Yes.
put you on the spot.
You know, do what you need to do to empower yourself. Don't ever, for a shred of a second, hesitate to advocate for yourself. You know a lot more than you think, and you are more capable than you could ever imagine. And most of all, reach out when you need encouragement and don't ever quit on a bad day.
Hmm. Easier said than done, but excellent as well.
Yes,
We say that too, like get yourself onto a good day and then make that decision
yeah.
when you're thinking about letting go. I
Even
love
if
it.
it's just pausing and saying, you know what, I'll decide tomorrow.
Yeah.
And, sometimes just a little break from even the thought of it, and then you can keep going. And I mean, every little bit counts. Like, give yourself all the credit.
100% of the credit. It's
Mhm.
hard
Yes.
and y'all are doing it. Alicia's doing it. I see you all doing it too. And thank you so much for sharing your story. I've loved getting to know you and working with you and your sweet little babies. And I hope I hear from them forever because they're just the cutest little things. I love them. So thank you so much. And if you need some help too and you want help in our coaching program, there's links down below and you can talk with us and meet with our team and see if this is a good fit for you. We help working moms pump fast and efficiently so they can protect their milk supply at work. So if that's interesting to you, let us know. But thanks again, Elicia, for being here today. It was so fun to chat with you, and we'll talk more soon.
My pleasure. Have a great evening.